Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Bible Thumping Wingnut Show. We have Matt Slick and Deconverted Man here with us tonight. I am not the Bible Thumping Wingnut, as you can see. He has given me control of his channel. We've had some technical difficulties, which explains why I'm running the show and why we're on a different channel. This is probably going to be shared and copied or mirrored on the BibleThumpingWingnut.com channel later. Anyhow, we have Matt Slick as our regular Sunday guest here to answer your questions. And once I find the watch link for this bad boy, I'm going to put the link so that you can join after Matt and Deconverted Man have finished their conversation. And the reason that we do this, the reason we have these hangouts, is because our goal is to not just contend and defend the faith. Of course we're doing that. We want to be here as Christians to answer the questions of the atheist community, but the most important thing is that we're doing this because we care about your souls and we want you to come to faith in Jesus Christ for the salvation and for the forgiveness of your sins. Forgiveness that is only available through the shed blood of Jesus Christ on the cross and his victorious resurrection from the dead 2,000 years ago. So, with that, Matt, Deconverted Man, I'll let you guys have at it. Go ahead.
All right, go ahead, sir. Yeah, we've already been talking for an hour.
Well, we killed each other already. No, I'm Deconverted Man. You can call me Dan if you wanted to, for just to have a name to call me. I was a Christian for 24, 5 years, something, I don't know, from 8 to 32, so whatever that is. I always forget what that number is. I deconverted after trying to find what facts I could find out about Christianity, found nothing, found counter evidence, and went to apologetics, tried to use just the logical arguments. As I learned logic, I realized that the arguments that apologetics had didn't work. So I just deconverted, basically. That's my deconversion story in a nutshell. As far as Matt Slick goes, I arbitrarily decided to do some videos looking at some one particular website on his webpage, however you want to say that. And in particular, I looked at cut and paste for the atheism. And the main topic I wanted to address before asking other questions was why/how do you think atheism is a worldview? Is this something that you'd be willing to change because you said it can be part of a worldview, which I agree with, but to say it is a worldview, I would see that as wrong. Is that something you're willing to change, or no? Start there.
I'm willing to discuss it. Let's see if it's we have to define what a worldview is first.
Right, yeah, and you put out your definition, but there's no citation of where that definition comes from. If it was from a dictionary, I'd be like, okay, well, he's got a dictionary definition that agrees with that. I got nothing to say. So unless you're willing to say this is my definition and make it very clear that it's your definition, then that'd be fine. Then I'd be fine with that. But it didn't say this is your definition. It just says here's the definition.
Well, what do you think a worldview is?
You know what? That's a good question. I don't know. I'd have to go to a dictionary and see what it says for what a worldview is.
Well, I think it's basically a set of assumptions that we have that we use for the world around us.
Right, but where would that? That's what I'm saying is if that's coming from a dictionary, say Webster's or what have you, then I would have no problem with that. I'd be like, okay, I'm on the same page. But because you gave no citations to anything, you just say this is the definition of a worldview on that piece of your website. It's not like you're saying this is my definition of this word. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I don't know. I didn't think it was all that big of a deal. I can find various citations and to go through them. That's certainly a possibility. I don't have any problem doing that. I always like to update my site and make citations, make things better.
Yeah, because atheism in and of itself, I don't think you could call that a worldview because it doesn't tell you anything more. Just like if somebody said, I'm a theist, that doesn't necessarily that's their worldview. We don't know anything more. So it's kind of like almost a straw man or a potential straw man to say, well, you automatically have a worldview because that means you have to have this, 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 and that. And it's not necessarily so.
Well, I'm looking at different definitions right now as we're talking here, and the way someone thinks about the world. Another one is the overall perspective from which one sees and interprets the world, a collection of beliefs about life and the universe held by an individual or a group.
Right. So, but it's just one position on one particular thing. So that's why I'm saying I don't think you could tie the two together.
Absolutely, because if you're an atheist, then you deny supernatural stuff. Usually. Not
necessarily.
That's what I said, usually.
Oh, well, but, yeah.
Or you'd presuppose some form of naturalism or materialism or phenomenal. Excuse me, I'll just leave it at that. Materialism or naturalism. And here's the thing about which particular type of atheism do I have to address with each particular individual. I have to find out, well, what do they mean? Some atheists will say, no, atheism is a denial of God's existence, and the only thing that exists in the universe is the universe itself. Yeah. Well, then that absolutely is a worldview because it has certain ramifications of that. Other ones will say, well, I'm not sure about this, and I kind of lean towards that. This might be possible. Well, then it's more difficult to nail them down as having a perspective or a worldview.
Right, so why not just say all that you just said there and say, because you're trying to teach people what to say to atheists in a chat room, instead just say that and say, okay, ask them what their worldview is or if they even have one.
Oh, maybe I will modify that. Go through articles and modify them all over the place.
I would love that. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Moving on then. People are going to totally go crazy that you actually said that you might revise that. That's great. Do you agree with biological evolution? I think King Crocodile might have asked that, but I wanted to ask that question, so I don't know what your answer was.
What kind?
As far as I know, there's only one kind of biological evolution, scientifically speaking. So, I mean, natural selection via,
the neo-Darwinian. The neo-Darwinian theory of evolution, where life formed and evolved, and that's how we arrived at our present state, and went from lower species and hominoids into what we have now. No, I absolutely deny that.
Why?
Because I don't think that the evidence supports it.
All right. So is that? But what do you make of the fact that the majority of scientists are for it? I know that I'm not saying because they're for it, it makes it true, but why would they all be for it if there isn't enough evidence?
Well, everybody has presuppositions by which they will interpret data, and the scientific community over the I'm not an expert in this at all, but I'd say the past 100 years, we'll just use that as a generic marker, has become more and more secularized. So as more and more scientists move into that, and they're more and more are secularized to begin with, then we're going to see a propensity to have an increase from the secular view that they're going to adopt evolution. But there's also a growing number of people who are scientists who are jumping ship and not agreeing with the theory of evolution as the information comes in, or starting to have more and more problems with it.
So how do we account for the fact that there has been things based on biological evolution that have worked? Medicines, they took a computer simulation and based it off of evolution and got the wings to be better using a computer that basically was programmed to mimic evolution. Are we just going to say, well, that was just a glitch? I mean, if it's producing results.
You mean someone intelligently designed a program to fit information and then got a predicted result out of intelligent design? You mean that?
They programmed the computer to do what evolution does, they
intelligently designed it. They intelligently designed a program to mimic something. Here's the problem with programs: you get what you look for when you program something.
Okay, well, what about the medicine though? Like medical, Well, people are getting cured from medicine based on biological evolution theory.
Here's an illustration. A man is walking along a path, and a tiger to his right is in the forest, jumps and leaps at him. The man ducks. There happens to be a cliff to his left. The tiger goes over the cliff. The man says, "Oh, if I duck when a tiger gets here, and jumps at me, then I'll be safe. Now he's going to test his hypothesis. He goes 100 feet further. Another tiger jumps. He ducks, goes over the cliff. He goes, oh, my goodness, this works. So he now has a theory based on this. Well, obviously the theory is incorrect because he just has the conditions that make it so. And this kind of illustration I use to show just because someone might have something with predictability doesn't mean that they're believing something that's true. It doesn't mean that. The scientific community has made countless mistakes. And just because we can see patterns within biological structures and people make predictions based on it, I think it's kind of humorous that they have to use intelligent design to develop a program to get this. I always think it's funny.
Okay. Well, that's an answer, so I'll leave it at that. Do you agree with the age of the Earth being 4.54 billion years old?
I lack belief in the age of the Earth.
Okay, so you're not willing to just go with, again, the majority view on that and just be like, yeah, that sounds good.
I lack belief in the age of the Earth.
Okay, so...
Can I just say the majority of Germany thought Nazism was pretty good. Did that make them correct?
Yeah, we can, you know, I just let them go.
I'm not going for the majority agrees with it, that makes it true. I'm just asking...
That's an argumentum ad populum.
Yeah, I know. If I said it that way, which I didn't. So...
Yeah, but you did.
That's right. No, I didn't. I said if... You know, oh well, whatever. Okay, is being a Calvinist the best way to be a Christian?
I don't know.
Yes.
Okay, I don't know, and yes. Well, I had interactions with Pentecostals and Church of Christ. And Pentecostals believe that if you don't speak with the tongues, you don't have the Holy Spirit. The Church of Christ maintained if you didn't get baptized in a certain way, it didn't count and you were going to hell. So if either one of those is right, Calvinism is screwed, and all Calvinists are screwed. So
both
how
those
do we?
perspectives are wrong.
Huh?
Both
Both those perspectives are wrong.
Yeah.
How do you know?
Because I've studied the scriptures.
But they too claim to have studied the scriptures.
So they can study and be
how
wrong.
do we know who's right and who's wrong?
By going to the scriptures.
Okay.
Well, for
I'll
example,
just move on because
for example, Church of Christ will say you have to be baptized to be saved. You might even go to 1 Peter 3:21, which says baptism now saves you, but they don't read the rest of it. They don't read it before and they don't read after. Noah entered the ark, and that corresponding to that baptism now saves you, not the removal of dirt from the body, but an appeal to God for clean conscience. So Noah entered the ark through faith, and it was the ark that saved them, not the water. The water that's corresponding in Greek antitupon is not talking about the flood, which destroyed people. It's talking about the ark that saved. That's why Peter says it's not the water. When we go to the issue of justification, which is a legal declaration of righteousness, the justification is received by faith, Romans 5:1, apart from the works of the law, Romans 3:28-29. Excuse me, Romans 3:28. Those and Paul says in Romans 4:5, to the one who does not work but believes, his faith is reckoned as righteousness. So we know that justification is by faith. Now they say you have to be baptized to be saved. I can go to Acts chapter 10, verses 44-48, where Peter and the disciples were really quite surprised because there were Gentiles there who were speaking in tongues, and they had received the Holy Spirit just as the disciples had, yet they had not been baptized. So I asked the Church of Christ people, how is it that they had received the Holy Spirit just as Peter had, and they're speaking in tongues and glorifying God, which Romans 3:10, 11, 12 says they cannot do if they're unbelievers? How is it then that they were doing this stuff and also were not saved at the same time? Please explain that. They can't. This is what I do for a living.
Got a good counter there, I guess, to that
Yes.
particular denomination, but they basically say, well, we're right. And I think
I'll
if
debate them.
theology, well, of course, but if theology had a more ironed out system than just, well, you have to look at the scriptures, because I've heard every theist ever of multiple denominations say that. And it's like, look, why isn't this converging into one group instead of diverging into multiple groups? If there was a system like there is in science, we would expect to see some sort of convergence, not 10,000 plus denominations. So I think that the system is kind of broken, and you guys, you know, the theologists that are out there need to fix your own house, because we skeptics are looking in and going, good luck with that, you know.
Right. So there's no divergence in scientific theory.
It converges a long time. I said so. You know, eventually you get to an agreement. So yeah, like the age of the Earth. Okay. Do
Can I comment?
Huh?
Can I comment?
Okay.
I agree with you. There needs to be more harmony within Christian theology. And unfortunately, we have a lot of people who don't really believe the Word of God and have agendas with which they come to the Scriptures. And denominations within Christianity are one of the greatest embarrassments that we can ever have as a Christian community.
Well, that's good. See, we're on the same page there. Now, would you also agree with me along the same lines that the Christians need to do something about the people that are saying they're Christian, whether you want to know true Scotsman them or not, and not taking their kids to the hospital because they believe the power of prayer is going to heal those kids?
Of course, I fight against that. There's this website called carm.org. Go check it out. We try and teach people to not make mistakes like that. Luke was a doctor, so we don't just say, hey, just pray and believe. No, we use doctors, because God ordained doctors. In fact, Paul the Apostle said, take a little wine for your stomach. Wine was a type of medicine. So there's no problem with using medicine. It's just a lot of these people just don't know what they're doing, and a lot of us Christians do correct them and say, no, that's not what the Scriptures teach. And but you know, there's
so pretty much the fundamentalists. I think that the skeptics, because we're obviously against the fundamentalists more than anything else.
I'm a fundamentalist.
Well, but are you trying to push creationism into schools?
Well, I think that we should have fair and equitable information taught in schools. I think the theory of evolution should be taught, but I also think that creation theory and intelligent design should also be taught instead of having a secularist, humanistic view.
Should we also allow the Church of Satan to teach their? I
don't know. Do you want Satanists in church teaching your children?
Should we also allow?
I ask you. Do you want?
No.
Satanists?
It doesn't matter what I want. I'm asking, if we allow Christianity, do we have to allow everybody?
I said intelligent design. I didn't say Christianity.
But, you know, if we teach that, don't we have to teach all the other stuff too?
Wait a minute.
Homeopathics, you know, stuff like this.
Well, no.
It's the controversy. You know, the world's actually flat. Do we need to teach that?
I said intelligent design. I don't have any problem with creationism being taught in school, but I didn't say anything about Christianity being taught, now did I?
All right. So you think intelligent design is kind of a separate thing from that then?
Well, there's a yes and no to that because they can bleed over, but I think intelligent design has a lot to offer, and I think it has predictability as well.
Well, it hasn't been. Nobody has produced anything on it yet. So, I mean, if you guys produce some scientific peer-reviewed stuff on it, that'd be great. I'd love to look at that. Let's move on.
Hold on. They do exist. I don't have the documentation with me, but I do know that they have peer-reviewed articles that use intelligent design as a basis and make predictions. So this information is out there. I just haven't collected it, put it on my website to document it, but it does exist.
Once you do, I'd love to look at it and have scientists and stuff look at it and see what we can make of it. All right, is the Bible...
Man, hold on, Deconverted Man, because you're kind of jumping all over the place here.
Well, I'm asking...
What is your scientific background?
That's irrelevant.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
How many peer-reviewed journals have you read?
That's also irrelevant.
Okay. Just
all right.
Wondering. I would think that would be kind of important information for someone who's demanding that kind of information. That's all.
No. Because that would be appeal to the minority, the appeal to self. So, okay. Am I still here?
You are still here.
Okay. Is the Bible inerrant?
Yes, in your autographs.
In the autographs, which are gone.
Yes.
So how do you know that the autographs were inerrant if we don't have them?
Because they came from God. They'd have to be inerrant, logically.
I mean, why? I mean, you just base that on that it said that the imperfect one said that they came from God, therefore they were inerrant at one point.
Reductio ad absurdum. Do you really think that's what I would teach?
I don't know. How would you find out that those autographs that we don't have are inerrant?
I'm sorry, say it again.
How would you know that something that we don't have is inerrant when we don't have it.
If it comes from God, then it would be inerrant.
But how do you know it comes from God since we don't have those?
Because if it comes from God, then it is inerrant.
Okay, but how do you know it does come from God?
Well, that's a spiritual question now, isn't it? Do you want empirical evidence to show that it comes from God, who's transcendent being existing outside the universe? Then you're making a category mistake.
All right. Okay.
But I can show you things in the scriptures that are quite interesting, prophetically speaking, and you'd have to tell me how that's possible.
Now, you make enough predictions, you're eventually going to get one right.
Oh, really? You think so? Let me ask you then.
Tomorrow stuff will happen. I made a prediction.
Hold on. Let me go to Psalm 22. Let me go to Psalm 22, written 1000 BC.
I'm sorry, I really am not interested.
Wait a minute.
Hey, hold on.
Because it's circular. I don't care.
Hold on a second. Let me make my case. You fire questions at me. I'm answering left and right. I go to answer you, and then you say you're not interested.
I'm not. Look. There are lots of predictions that you can make work.
Why don't you let me try?
All right, go ahead.
Man, I don't think you really want the truth. If you're really interested in a dialogue, let me make my case. All right? This is Psalm 22, written 1000 BC. What does this sound like? Be not far from me, for trouble is near, for none is here to help. Many bulls have surrounded me, strong bulls of Bashan have encircled me. They open wide their mouth at me as a ravening and a roaring lion. I'm poured out like water. All my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax. It is melted within me. My strength is dried up like a potsherd, and my tongue cleaves to my jaws, and you lay me in the dust of death. For dogs have surrounded me. A band of evildoers has encompassed me. They pierced my hands and my feet. I can count all my bones. They stare at me. They divide my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots. What does that sound like?
Very poetic writing.
Okay, what does it sound like? It's describing what event?
I wouldn't know off the top of my head.
You said you were a Christian.
Yeah, I was.
You don't know about the crucifixion, huh?
No, I do. But
okay, so did they pierce his hands and his feet in the crucifixion?
Well, if they pierced his hands, he would have fallen off the cross. You actually have to pierce the wrist to keep you up there. But you
the wrist
can
was considered. Hold on. The wrist was considered part of the hand back there. There wasn't a word for wrist.
All right.
Okay, so it was in the wrist and the hand. So there you go.
All right.
Did they also cast lots for his clothing?
Sure, they wrote the story after the prediction, so you can make it fit.
Oh, okay. So what they did was when Jesus was on the cross, when he quoted Psalm 22, written 1000 BC, even though that description of crucifixion was not invented till 600 BC by the Phoenicians, and then the Romans borrowed it later. So it's just the guy's making it look like it fit, even though he's on the cross being crucified, right?
Well,
that's what you're going to tell me?
If he actually existed, as
what?
far as
wait.
Paul could have just made up the whole story and said, "Hey, look, let's make it fit what was already written."
Oh, okay. So they're all a bunch of liars now.
Sure.
Oh, okay. And so
I mean, if the scientists can be liars, the biblical guys can be liars. Why not?
So what you have is a bunch of
people that wrote the Book of Mormon. Joseph Smith, he was a liar.
Deconverted Man, listen up, dude. You gotta stop interrupting. And furthermore,
I'm not interrupting.
You're completely interrupting.
Right.
And furthermore, don't ask questions and then not allow him to answer the question by saying, "Oh, I'm not interested."
I'm not interested in circular reasoning.
You asked a direct question.
All right. Okay, I won't do that again. I don't know.
You're not interested in circular reasoning? You commit circular reasoning all the time. I can prove it, but we'll get to that.
I wanted to move on, but okay.
Wait a minute. Now you're saying that these guys are all liars.
They could be, yeah. Sure.
No, are they or aren't they?
They could be. I'm just saying, why not? Why do we think they wouldn't?
So then we have these writings about people who are teaching honesty and integrity and sacrifice, and it cost them their lives, but they're just all doing this based on a lie?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. So then they were mentally deranged wackos.
Sure.
Okay. And so when you read the Gospels and stuff, do you find mentally deranged teachings, like sacrifice yourself for others, being kind and being gentle, being honest, and don't commit adultery, and things like that? These are the words of wackos?
I also find stuff about slavery and women shouldn't talk and stuff like that. But
Okay. Wait a second. I didn't ask you that. I asked you.
Just because you can write nice stuff doesn't mean you're not a wacko.
Does it sound like? We'll tackle one thing.
Doesn't matter what it sounds like. 'Cause I can't determine.
Are you gonna let him answer a question?
Gosh, dude, let me finish.
Okay, I didn't know you were still going.
Well, that's because you're talking over me.
Did the middle of Matt's sentence interrupt the beginning of yours?
Hey, I thought you were just the moderator. Come on, man. I can't do
Here's
two
the thing.
at once.
Here's the thing. Look, I'm asking you one specific thing. Do the things that I cited sound like wackos? That's the question. You didn't answer the question. You said they also said women to be silent. I didn't ask about that, and I can address that. Does what I said sound like they're wackos?
It could, yes.
Okay, so what you're telling me then is when they're teaching integrity and honesty and fidelity, that's probably just really a bunch of wackos saying these things. How might I take you seriously in a serious conversation?
Yeah.
So you could be lying to me right now, right?
Sure, absolutely.
To win the debate, right?
Yes.
Okay, so as your atheistic perspective allows you to lie and be deceptive, you could be doing that right now in order to try and gain the upper hand, right?
That's correct.
Okay, but I wouldn't do that, right?
I don't know. You could be a liar too.
I'm not a liar.
We don't know that. We have to be skeptical of both positions.
No.
See, skepticism, in a normal conversation, you and me, I say, hey, I had dinner last night. We're going to assume that that's true because there's no reason to assume it's not true. Now, in reality, I might be lying. And until you find out that I am lying, you're going to probably assume that I was telling the truth. That's what we do in social situations. We presume innocence until guilt is proven. We don't have any reason to think either one of us is lying, but we could be lying.
Okay,
now, if I say, look, I can levitate off my bed, you're going to say I'm a liar unless I can prove it. And you'd be absolutely right to do that. I'm not going to say you're a liar. I don't know. I just, you got some stuff wrong. You were willing to correct it. I think that does show integrity to some degree. And that makes me have to go back and fix what I said. I have to go and say, hey, look, Matt actually changed the website. I was wrong. I like being wrong. That's fine. But we could both be liars? Yeah, of course we could be. There's no reason to think that we are unless one of us shows that we're lying in some way, shape, or form.
My worldview does not allow me to lie. Yours does.
Okay. So if I ask you what's your Social Security number, what are you going to tell me?
I don't have to tell you.
Well, isn't concealing information a lie?
No.
So
I don't tell you where my wife is right now. That's not lying to you. Lying is a deceit, an intention to deceive. And if I don't give you information, that doesn't mean I'm lying to you. You should know this.
I just wanted to make sure you were centered on that definition rather than the other ones I have heard from other people. Because everyone has a different idea of what lying is and isn't. But that kind of goes more along the lines of what Kant framed as lying. But he went a little bit too far. He was like, no, you should just tell the truth all the time, even if it is your Social Security number. You should just be like, here it is, which I think is a little bit too far. But, but just because somebody's worldview or lack thereof, because I don't know that I have one, allows them to lie doesn't necessarily mean then they're lying. You have to catch them in it to prove that. Otherwise, you got nothing.
The problem is, you say you are going back to skepticism repeatedly. You can't know this, you can't know that.
Right.
So you don't know about the validity of your own skepticism. You are assuming it.
Sure.
Okay. And you're the one who complained about circular reasoning earlier.
Yes.
So you're refuting yourself because you have circular reasoning. You assume the validity of your own skepticism, but your skepticism is self-refuting about skepticism. Yet what you are is someone who doesn't want to assume the thing and use circular reasoning, but you're doing it.
I don't assume that skepticism works. I see that it works.
Skepticism works? Are you sure?
Pretty sure.
You're absolutely sure skepticism works?
Can't be absolutely sure about anything. It could be wrong.
Oh, so you can't be absolutely sure about anything. Are you
That's
absolutely
right.
sure about that? Come on, man. Come on. You
The
just
only thing
refuted
I can be
yourself.
absolutely sure of, I'll retract that. There is something I can be absolutely that I exist. Beyond that, it becomes question marks.
Well, you just refuted yourself. You just, you said you
Well,
can't.
I retracted it.
Okay, good. So then you are absolutely sure that your skepticism is a valid way of going.
I am fairly confident in it. Yes.
So you assume it.
Yes.
So that's circular reasoning.
No.
It's not circular reasoning. Could you explain to me how it's not circular reasoning to assume that things are beginning to prove you're assuming its validity when you work with it without proving it?
I don't know if I can answer that complex question. I'll try my best. When I see that a system works, like skepticism, which means just doubt in general, it's just blanket doubt things until I can prove them to some degree or the other to myself. When I see that that repeatedly works and functions in the world that I exist in, then I continue to assume that it works. The moment it stops working, then I'm going to have to question it and go back and go, wait a minute. This skepticism thing wasn't all what it was cut out to be. Maybe I have it the wrong way. Maybe I need a different system. Maybe I have to look at it this way. But you go, one example, since you gave an example earlier, you go to a car dealership, you want to see the car. The guy doesn't show you the car. You're going to have some questions, some serious questions, skeptical questions. And the more he refuses to show you the car, the more questions you're going to have. And eventually you're going to say, you know what? I don't want to do business here anymore because you're just giving me the runaround. Skepticism protects us from the frauds and the liars and the scam artists out there. Whether they know that they're doing that or not, skepticism protects us from them and enables us to have a wall between us and them. Somebody says the world's flat, I'm going to say prove it. They can't do that, I'm going to say fine. Where's your logical argument? They can't offer that, I'm going to be skeptical of that conclusion. That's how it works. I see that it works continuously. Am I skeptical about skepticism? I can be, but when I see that it works, I'm fine. If it doesn't work one day, I'll stop doing it and I'll find something else.
I'm just trying to show you that you're being inconsistent.
All right.
In order for you to have skepticism, you assume its validity, you assume it's the right way to go. But in order to do that, you need to have absolutes. You have to assume the validity of the laws of logic, for example, by which you can test things so that you can say, I'm not sure about if I know something over here is true or not. You're skeptical about that, but you have to be non-skeptical, for example, about the laws of logic.
That's
about
right.
Your ability to think critically. So you're not all that skeptical. What you do is you presuppose certain things without validation. You know this, because I know we've talked before this show came on. We talked for an hour. I know you know about this stuff. But you're being inconsistent. I'm just trying to demonstrate.
If you're
you
saying
are
that I should always be skeptical of everything, perhaps I misphrased myself. There's things you don't have to be skeptical of. If you're trying to say that, like 1 + 1 is 2, well, there's mathematics you can do to mess that up. But usually, yeah, it's going to equal 2. The laws or rules of logic, however you want to label it, are correct until we find out that they don't work. One great example is we're in informal logic. The people that do informal logic for a living, are looking at the law of identity and going, should we keep this because quantum physics kind of screws it up, or do we just say screw quantum physics and keep it? Do we need a new rule that gives an exception for that? Because A doesn't always equal A in quantum physics. What are we going to do with that? They're debating this. They're asking about it because we refine logic over time. So one day, tomorrow, next week, whatever, the law of identity might be gone and we have a different rule in its place, a different law, because we found out that it didn't conform with reality and we want to be as close to reality as we can get. So logic can change, but until it does, we're going to stick with these formulas because they keep working. So we see that it works and we go, okay, until it stops working, we're fine with it. Yeah, we assume that it's going to work because it worked yesterday. Could we be wrong? Yeah, tomorrow if it stops working, then we'll be wrong.
Okay, so then blue sleeps faster than Wednesday.
I don't even know what to make of that.
You said logic can change. The law of identity doesn't mean what it is. We can't trust it. I think you misapplied the issue with quantum physics. I've gone through 2 books on quantum physics, and I don't see any problem with the law of identity, something being what it is. You're talking about statements that they interpret as a fact. The fact still exists as it is. It doesn't violate the law of identity. But if you're going to say that the laws of logic can change, then I can say that blue sleeps faster than Wednesday.
And if you can show that that consistently produces a result, then it will be incorporated into logic.
But what you're doing is if-then statements. You're presupposing the validity of classical logic in order to make the statement.
Yeah, I don't know what else to do. Again, if
yeah,
it
but you
stops
said
working,
logic can change.
yes, it can. If
Okay.
if we find out that we were wrong about something tomorrow, shouldn't we change to adapt to that, or should we just keep going with what we have?
If logic can change, then how do you know you're being logical right now?
You can answer my question, so I'm not going to answer yours. Can we? Let's move on because I think we dried up this well. Okay.
If logic can change, then how do you know you're being logical?
You don't. You have to be skeptical.
So you presuppose it without validity.
Guess so.
Great.
All right.
Oh, okay.
Moving on.
So then you're complaining about the issue of circular reasoning. To just refute your own position. You're
All right.
inconsistent.
You're right. I did. Okay. So do miracles still occur?
Define a miracle.
That's. I would think you, being the Bible expert, would know what a miracle is. I don't know, like somebody coming back from the dead that's like got holes all up in them and stuff. I mean, that anything that violates the laws of physics as we understand it, I think would be the statement definition of it.
I
Anything,
don't know.
you
I
know,
don't
anything that's in the Bible that happened, you know, moving water and turning water to wine and people coming back from the dead and people coming out of graves and all that stuff. Do those miracles, do any of that still occur?
I would have to know all the instances in the world to know if they do occur at all. I don't know if they do still occur. I've heard anecdotal evidence of such things occurring. How do you go out and test it? If you say, yeah, you go to a village someplace and so-and-so was dead for a day and he rose from the dead, how do you test it?
Yeah, that's a good
I
question.
wouldn't know.
That
So
kind
the
of
thing
leads
is,
into,
the thing is, I can't answer your question. You're asking me a question that is not answerable. How would I know if miracles can occur? I don't know.
I don't know. You might have seen one. But that leads right into my next one. How do we properly identify a miracle? For example, say an Elmo's fire, we thought at the time was some sort of miracle, some sort of thing from God, until they found out that it's just, electrical discharge or whatever. So how do we know a miracle when we see it?
Well, that would take some study.
What kind of study?
Looking at it.
Okay, so we can test a miracle, like scientifically speaking. If one occurred, we could test it.
Why do you keep assuming the scientific method is the right way of learning truth?
Well, it's produced a lot of results. We wouldn't be talking if we didn't have it.
That's circular reasoning again.
Okay.
The scientific method is a philosophy. It's a philosophy that seems to work. You know about the problem of induction. They're similar in the scientific method. You have to assume the validity of the laws of logic. You have to assume certain philosophical positions when you tackle the issue of the material world. You assume largely that the material world is all we really need to know about. You can't validate all kinds of things from the scientific method, and you can't use the scientific method to validate the scientific method without begging the question. Circular reasoning, which is what you stand in opposition to.
Okay, well, I'll give you an example because I was just doing with this earlier. I commented on this video where they're milk feeding a statue, and I said that's an old trick. Everyone knows how that works. It's not magic. It's just it's water tension. I can do that with any statue. It's not, oh, the milk disappeared. The milk. I'm like, yeah, because it's draining down the side of it. It's going. You're not looking at it. You're not examining it. You just want it to be magic. So obviously that's not a miracle. We can show that it's not a miracle. But for them that believe it's a miracle, they're going to continue that belief in spite of the evidence that it's not a miracle. But you and I would look at the evidence and we'd say, no, that's not a miracle. But when we get something like that, when we get people saying that prayer can heal people, and when we try to test it and we see nothing, that's kind of a problem because there seems to be no way to test these claims that are being made.
If you pray on a regular basis. You pray for 7 minutes, and each time you pray for 7 minutes, what you want occurs. Would you say that's God doing it? Or would you say you've discovered some physical property of the universe that's tapped into by this thing we call prayer?
I have no idea what I would call it, but I'd find it would be something, which I don't have right now. I don't even know what I call it. But you know what? If you get my stuffed cat Monty to levitate off my desk by praying, I'm gonna investigate the bleep out of your faith, religion, whatever it is, because
would that be a miracle?
Did something. I don't know if I would call it a miracle. I'd say I can't explain it. You might call it a miracle. I don't know what to call it.
So the issue,
I would want to know more about it. I would want to test it in a lab. I'd want to see if nothing else is around, can they do it again? Can they duplicate this result? And if they could every time, that is something worth investigating. The problem I see with all of theology and all religion is that none of the stuff that supposedly happened thousands of years ago can be shown to have happened at all. And we can't demonstrate it today. There are no, that I know of at any rate, because maybe there's one that I don't know of, as you said. As far as I know, there is no one going around talking in tongues, you know, doing all those other spiritual gifts that the Christians, early Christians supposedly had. Although those aren't very impressive, but still, nonetheless, it would be something. We don't have that. It's a problem.
You don't see that you're making a huge mistake. You are making a category mistake. What you're doing is presupposing that which we haven't even defined what a miracle is, which is why I asked you what you think it means. But if something happens that's unusual and it can be repeated, then it's not a miracle. If you can do an experiment by which what you think is unexplainable occurs repeatedly, then you're discovering something that's phenomenological, related to the physical aspect of the universe and some property. The issue is not what you see. The issue is the presuppositions that you're holding. And when you say we can't show, for example, that Jesus rose from the dead, how do you repeat that today? It's the wrong question. With the parting of the Red Sea, it's the wrong question. Because what you're doing is you're saying that those kinds of things, in order for them to be true, need to be subjected to the scientific method. But you haven't established...
Not in order to be true, but in order to be something I can trust. Absolutely.
Well, hold on. But you see, you're applying the wrong standard. You want something, the scientific method, to be applied to something that is by definition not going to be subject to the scientific method. It's a category mistake.
Well, I know that it's defined basically out of existence beyond our ability to...
You have done that.
No, I haven't done that. Theology has done that.
No, you have. You've assumed. You've assumed the scientific method is how we must verify miracles.
Yeah, okay. A miracle is something that happened, your own words, doesn't happen in enough times to subject to science, right?
I didn't say that.
Well, okay. Sorry. I was trying to summarize what you had said. A miracle is not something that we could test with science. Is that correct or not?
I didn't say that either.
All right. Can we test a miracle via science?
I don't know.
Okay. So, if we had something weird, like my stuffed cat floating in midair, is that a miracle? If it only happens one time and never again, is it a miracle?
Let me just offer this. Let's just cut to the chase. A miracle is an out-of-the-ordinary, direct, and divine intervention in the world. Examples would be the parting of the Red Sea, Jesus walking on water, resurrection of Lazarus. These, by definition, are not things that you could test.
Right, but how do we know when it... That's what I'm saying is, that's a problem. Don't you see that that's a problem? If
you believe that Plato existed, right?
I don't know if he did or didn't exist. I really
did
don't
Socrates
care.
live?
Don't know, don't care.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, so in other words, we can't have any way of discussing, because we talk about the historical evidence of Socrates or Plato, and you say, don't know, don't care.
Yeah.
So, you know, do you even know your mother is your mother?
Yes.
How do you know?
DNA.
Have you had your mother's DNA checked with your DNA?
Sure.
You have?
Yeah.
You had it tested?
Yes.
You tested your mother's DNA and your own DNA?
Yes.
When did you do this? What year?
don't know offhand. I'd have to look it up. What's it? The point is, I
Could be
verified.
lying.
Yeah, I was just say
I'm
you could be
lying.
lying.
Yeah, okay, whatever.
You could be.
Well,
I could be
we're
sure.
skeptical. We're skeptical. Why don't you
Okay,
produce
be
some
skeptical.
evidence for us?
I don't have it on
I
hand.
mean, because
I can get it
it's
again.
smart to be skeptical.
I can go and get her blood and have my blood and do it all again, and I'm happy to do that because unlike you guys, I'm not afraid to produce actual evidence to back up.
If you want
ideas.
evidence, let me ask you, Dan, if you want evidence of the transcendental God, shouldn't you expect transcendental evidence?
I would like some form of evidence that I can verify.
Wait a minute. Transcendental evidence.
I don't even know what that is. What is transcendental?
Let's talk about this. If God exists outside of the universe, is he subject to the universe?
I have no idea.
Okay. If he created the universe and he's in control of the universe, as the Bible says, is he subject to it?
Maybe, maybe not. Don't know.
Okay. We can't even have a normal conversation because you keep showing me profound inconsistencies.
Okay.
You want absolute things in some areas, but you won't even work logically with inference in others.
All right. All right.
See, if God exists outside the universe, he's a creator of it. It's logical to infer that he's not subject to the thing he created.
Why?
Because he's the creator of it, and he would have to bring it into existence, and he is the one that would control what came into existence. Therefore, he could not be subject to the thing that he created and brought into existence.
How do you know that? Maybe the second he created it, it entangled his DNA or God stuff or whatever, and it started interfering back with him because he screwed up. We don't know.
So then that would not be the Christian God.
Well, who says it's the Christian God?
I'm talking about the Christian God.
It could be the lobsterist.
Okay. I'm talking about the Christian God, the one revealed in Scripture, who created the universe and is not subject to it. If you want to find the Christian God, you need to look at the transcendental evidence about God's existence. The kinds of things you would look for would be that what he would tell us would be authoritative. We would see the miraculous occur. Doesn't mean we have to see it with our own eyes, but it would occur, and at least we have these things recorded in Scripture in the Old Testament and New Testament. When I talk about prophecy, you have a convenient way of getting rid of them and dismissing them. You're not even interested in discussing them. I try and show you one, and you won't even admit in Psalm 22 that it sounds like crucifixion. And you know that's what it is. And you know that. And what happens is I see the inconsistency in you, in that you say you want to absolutely hold to skepticism in one point, and then what you'll also do is say that I want absolute proof and evidence that I can test on the miraculous, which is an inconsistency in your part.
I don't.
How am I supposed to argue with you and have a rational discussion with you when you jump your own ship, jump from your own ship, your own position, you jump around, and you're inconsistent about all kinds of things? Why should I take you seriously? Why should anybody take you seriously?
No one should take me seriously, but if my logic is sound, then the conclusions are something that they can trust.
Your logic already...
I don't care if they take me seriously or think I'm a jerk. I'm not important. The argument is, but we're not debating. This isn't a debate. This is a conversation. I'm trying to get to understand you. You're trying to get to understand me. At least that's what I assumed is going on. Now we're kind of slipping into persuasionary dialogue. I just, as a skeptic, I want something tangible to some degree that I can point to and say, there. That's it. That's what proves this particular God exists. I don't have that. I have the miracles can happen. We have some writings about them. So what? Other people have writings too. People can make up stories. People have made up stories, made up gods, made up deities. There's 10,000 plus gods out there. Why is yours any different from theirs? As far as I can tell, it's not. I know you love God. I know you believe in God.
Let me tackle him.
But it doesn't matter. It's the same. It's all the same.
Hold on.
And when you boil it down, it is. And you can't see that, and I know why. Because I was there once. I was there once. My brother's still there, and I love him, but I'm not there anymore. You gotta, for one moment, let me ask you this, okay?
Wait a minute. You say a whole bunch of stuff I want to respond to.
I know, but I want to boil it down to one thing, so you'll totally get where I'm coming from. You think that every other god except for yours is all completely made up?
I only defend the Christian God. All other gods are false.
Okay, so all the other gods are false. That's how I feel about all gods. There you go. That's my position. That's it in a nutshell.
Now, we talked about your inconsistencies. I've shown that you are inconsistent. I've shown that you make category mistakes. I've shown that you beg the question when you complain about others begging the question. You want something tangible, but here's the problem. You want something tangible that you can test in your own subjective experience, in your own subjective criteria. You're promoting a type of subjectivism to determine that which is absolute. It's another inconsistency on your part.
You might be right. How do I resolve that?
Become a Christian and believe in absolute truth.
Well, but I don't know that that's true.
Your own methodology leads you chasing your own tail. You beg the question and you complain about those who beg the question. You don't want them to do that, but yet you do that.
Okay,
You are inconsistent. And you don't care if people believe you or not. I'm showing you that you're inconsistent. Your worldview, your position leads you to this absurdity.
But okay. Okay, so just even if, and it might be, you might be totally right. Maybe if I have a worldview, I don't know that I do, maybe my system is completely screwed up. You might be right. I'm willing to question that. I'm willing to be persuaded that I have been inconsistent. And perhaps because I'm not, trying to debate you, I have been inconsistent because it's just casual conversation. I'm not trying to be all specific and have, an argumentation in format here or anything. So I'm not being as precise as I would if we were having a formal debate. We're just chilling it. We're telling each other stuff, and we're disagreeing with each other, but we're not, formally debating. So I'm not going to be, I'm not on par with what I could do. But nonetheless, okay, my system's flawed. I'll assume that for the benefit of this discussion. All right. I accept that. Now, I have to have some system in order to evaluate whether or not this other system that's being presented to me is valid or invalid. What system am I going to utilize that I can trust to do that? And if I just say, well, it's true because without it, I'm screwed, that's a lot of religions say that. So how do I select out of all of those potential answers which one's true without having a system? What am I supposed to do to just say, this one happens to be right? How do I do that?
Well, first of all, you're inconsistent. You've represented yourself in different ways during our discussion here tonight. And I've repeatedly shown you and called you on problems that I think you have.
Sure.
And I've just listed them, and you admit that you got some problems.
Sure.
Yet you say you want to have a system by which you judge truth. But you see, the problem is, you don't even know what you believe. You don't even know why you believe anything, and yet you want to have a system to judge another person's system of interpretation of determining what truth is. You're completely lost. You don't know what you're thinking. You don't know what you're believing. I mean, you know what you're thinking, but you don't know. Well, let me put it this way. You really don't seem to have any intellectual justification for anything that you're having. I've taken what you've said. I've picked them apart successfully. You've admitted you're inconsistent. You've admitted you really don't know what's going on. And then you say, but I want a system by which I can judge other systems. Well, then there's no way to reach you because you're such a skeptic. And then you're so inconsistent that there's no way to show you anything, because if I do show you anything, you're not going to believe it because you're skeptical about everything.
Why not just show me it then and see that you're right? See, that's where I ran into the brick wall with Christianity when I was a Christian. What you just said was told to me. They said, oh, we have the evidence, but the atheists won't believe us. And I said, then just show them the evidence and prove that your theory is right. And they didn't tell me what that evidence was. I had to go look and see if I could find it. I didn't find it. Maybe I missed something. I'm willing to think that I could have missed something, but I didn't find anything. I didn't find diddly. And I found reasons to think a lot of the stories were false. And that was a problem. And then the logical problems that many, if not all, because I haven't seen all, obviously, of the arguments for God have. That was another problem. I couldn't continue to believe in something that I didn't have any empirical evidence, repeatable tests, or logically coherent argument for. That's me. That's not you. If I'm inconsistent, so be it. Fine. I want to fix that. I want to improve that in myself.
You can't.
I can't. Okay, then I'm screwed. Then,
You are.
all right. But
that
doesn't mean anything to me, because I still need something that is repeatable and consistent, like science, to say X is this. There you go. There it is. And if there's a deity, for whatever reason, it's not giving me what I need to know that it exists.
Okay. I'm trying to show you that you're just inconsistent. And,
Okay.
You don't realize it.
No, I agree. I agree. I am inconsistent. I'll go with you. I totally am. All right. I agree. Now what?
Okay. If you're being inconsistent and it's because of your skepticism, and your skepticism is leading you to inconsistencies, then you need to abandon your skepticism.
Okay. So I don't have skepticism. What am I? I just don't believe anything at all? I mean, what do I have now?
What you say you want is repeatability, but you want repeatability in a skeptical worldview. Do you see the problem there? You want an absolute in
so I shouldn't be a skeptic. I should be have the worldview of scientism then, I guess.
What you're doing is you're saying you want a repeatable absolute system inside of your worldview that doesn't allow a repeatable absolute system. You don't see your own inconsistency.